Walk into any motorcycle shop in America. Ask the mechanic, the one with 30 years on the bench, which bikes he'd actually buy with his own money. He won't name the new ones. He won't name the fast ones. He'll quietly point to the 7 on this list. And the one at the top, it's been ridden past 600,000 miles on the original engine. Suzuki DR650. Let's start with the bike that mechanics laugh about, because there is almost nothing to work on. The Suzuki DR650 has been in production, virtually unchanged since 1996. Think about that for a second. While every other manufacturer has rolled out new platforms, ride-by-wire, traction control, and 12 different ride modes, Suzuki looked at the DR650 in the late 90s and said, "Yeah, we got it right." 3 decades later, they still haven't touched it. That's not laziness. That's confidence. The air-cooled single-cylinder 644cc engine puts out a modest 43 horsepower. On paper, that's nothing. In reality, that low-stressed thumper will outlive your knees. Most DR650s on the used market have between 30,000 and 80,000 miles on them, and the engine internals are barely broken in at that point. There are documented cases of these things crossing 200,000 miles with nothing more than valve adjustments and oil changes. MSRP sits right around $7,000 brand new, which makes it one of the cheapest dual sport options on the market. And here's where it gets interesting. A used 2015 DR650 with 25,000 miles will run you maybe $4,500. That's a lifetime motorcycle for less than the price of a single Harley service interval. Now, is it perfect? No. The seat is medieval, flat, hard, and clearly designed by someone who's never sat on a motorcycle for more than 10 minutes. The suspension is also pretty basic, and if you weigh north of 220 pounds, you'll want to upgrade the springs. And it vibrates a lot. After 70 miles per hour on the highway, your hands will start to tingle. But here's what mechanics love about it. Every single failure point is cheap and accessible. Carburetor instead of fuel injection, meaning no expensive sensors. Cable-operated clutch instead of hydraulic. A frame so simple you could rebuild this bike in your driveway with hand tools. Compared to a modern KTM 690 that costs nearly double and breaks twice as often, the DR650 is what you buy when you actually want to ride, not babysit. If a bike can go 25 years without needing a redesign, that tells you everything. Kawasaki KLR650. If the DR650 is the mechanic's quiet pick, the KLR650 is the one that started the cult. Production ran from 1987 all the way to 2018, with a brief revival in 2022. For over 3 decades, the United States military used these bikes. Not because they were the fastest or the most advanced, but because they could be dropped out of a helicopter, crash-landed in a desert, and still start on the first kick. Read any military procurement document on the KLR, and you'll see the same words over and over: durability, simplicity, parts availability. Here's the part most riders don't realize. The KLR650 wasn't designed to be fast. It was designed to be unkillable. The 651 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine produces around 40 horsepower, actually less than the DR650. But the gearing is set up so this bike will cruise at 65 miles per hour all day long, fully loaded with panniers and a tent and 2 weeks of supplies. Mechanics love this thing because, like the DR, it's a closed book of solved problems. The notorious doohickey issue, a known weakness in the balancer chain tensioner, has been documented and fixed for over 20 years. A $90 aftermarket part solves it permanently. Beyond that, you're looking at oil changes and valve checks. That's the entire maintenance schedule. Current pricing on a 2022 onward KLR650 sits around $7,000 to $8,000 new. Used pre-2008 generations can be had for $2,500. And those older ones? They're often the more desirable bikes because the engine internals are stronger. The downsides are real, though. The KLR is heavy for a dual sport, about 460 pounds wet. It's also slow to accelerate. And the stock windscreen creates buffeting at highway speeds that will rattle your fillings loose. But ask any mechanic which bike they'd trust to ride from Alaska to Argentina with no support truck, And the answer is almost always the same. Now, if you think a KLR is built tough, the next bike on this list might genuinely surprise you. Because it's not what most people expect from a forever motorcycle. Yamaha FJR1300? Here's the problem the FJR1300 solves. You want to ride 600 miles in a day. You want sport bike performance. You want to do it with a passenger. And you want the bike to still be running 30 years from now. For most manufacturers, those four requirements are impossible to combine. Yamaha solved it in 2001 and then proceeded to refine the same platform for over 20 years. The FJR1300 is powered by a 1298cc inline-4 that produces around 145 horsepower. That's serious power. But here's the engineering trick. Yamaha intentionally detuned this engine compared to its sport bike cousins. The R1 of the same era was pushing close to 180 horsepower from a similar displacement. Yamaha could have done that with the FJR. They chose not to. Instead, they built an engine running at maybe 70% of its actual capability. The result? An engine that simply refuses to die. I've personally seen FJRs at bike meets with 250,000 miles on the odometer. Original engine. Original clutch. The owners just shrug and say, yeah, I changed the oil. Pricing-wise, Yamaha pulled the FJR1300 from the US market in 2021, which has made the used market interesting. A clean 2018 to 2020 model now sells for $11,000 to $14,000. A high-mileage 2010 with 80,000 miles can be had for $5,500. Compared to a BMW K1600 GT, which does the same job for $30,000 new and has electronics that fail at predictable intervals. The FJR is an absolute steal. The flaw? The fairings are old-school plastic, and they crack if you drop the bike. Also, the heat coming off the engine in stop-and-go traffic will melt your inner thigh. Riders in Texas and Florida hate this bike for that reason alone. But for everyone else, it's the touring bike that mechanics buy for themselves and never sell. If you're getting value out of this breakdown, hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel push these kinds of honest deep dives to more riders. Honda VFR800. Most people don't think of sport bikes as bikes that last forever. They think of them as disposable. Track day toys you ride for 3 years and then either crash or trade in. The Honda VFR800 ruins that assumption. This bike runs a 782cc V4 engine. Yes, a V4. The same configuration Honda uses in their MotoGP machines. It produces around 105 horsepower, makes one of the best exhaust sounds in motorcycling, and was built using Honda's gear-driven cam system. That gear-driven cam is the secret sauce. While every other manufacturer uses chains or belts to drive their camshafts, Honda spent the extra money to use gears. Gears don't stretch. They don't snap. They don't need replacement at 80,000 miles like a timing chain does. Mechanics call the VFR800 the V4 that won't die. And that's not marketing speak. It's the consensus. Honda produced the VFR800 from 1998 through 2014 in the US market, and then quietly let it fade away. Current used pricing for a 2010 to 2014 model runs between $6,000 and $9,000, depending on condition and miles. For a sport touring V4 with reliability that matches a Toyota Camry, that's outrageous value. A comparable Aprilia Tuono, which mechanics genuinely warn customers about, costs nearly double and breaks 3 times as often. The catch with the VFR? 2 things. First, the V4 layout makes the engine wider, which means hot air dumps onto your legs in traffic. Second, parts for the VTEC variants from 2002 onward are getting harder to find at dealers. You're going to need an independent shop or a parts hunter on eBay. But here's the honest opinion. If I were buying one bike to keep for the next 25 years and I wanted something that was actually fun to ride, the VFR800 would be at the top of my personal list. This next one, though? It might be the most controversial pick on the whole list. BMW R1250 GS. A BMW on a list of motorcycles that last forever? I can already hear the comments. Yes, BMWs have a reputation for electrical gremlins. Yes, they're expensive to repair. Yes, the dealer markup is criminal. All true. But the boxer twin engine in the R1250 GS and the R1200 GS before it, is genuinely one of the most over-engineered power plants in motorcycling. The 1254 cubic centimeters air/oil-cooled boxer produces 136 horsepower and makes peak torque at just 6,250 revolutions per minute, which means this engine spends most of its life loafing along at low revolutions per minute. That's the longevity secret. Engines that work hard die young. Engines that barely break a sweat last forever. There are documented cases of R1200 GS bikes with over 300,000 miles on the original engine. Round-the-world riders have piled up insane mileage on these things. The Long Way Round series? Those bikes are still on the road. New. An R1250 GS starts at around $18,500 and quickly climbs past $22,000 once you add the options most riders want. That's not cheap. But here's the comparison. A Ducati Multistrada Phi 4 costs the same money and has known issues with the desmodromic valves that require expensive specialist service. The BMW gets shaft drive, meaning no chain replacement ever, and the Boxer's valves can be checked by anyone with basic mechanical skills. The downsides are not small. The final drive splines need regular greasing or they will fail catastrophically. The electronics, particularly on early R1250 models, can throw phantom error codes that scare you on long trips. And the bike is tall. If you're under 5'10", you'll be tiptoeing at every stoplight. But mechanics who specialize in BMWs will tell you this. The engine is the last thing that ever fails. Everything else can break. But that Boxer just keeps running. Now here's where the list gets genuinely controversial. Harley-Davidson Road King. Putting a Harley on a list of mechanics' picks is going to generate comments. I know, but hear me out. The Road King, specifically the post-2017 models with the Milwaukee 8, 107, or 114 engine, has quietly become one of the most reliable big twin touring platforms ever made. Not in spite of being a Harley, because of how Harley redesigned that engine. The previous twin-cam motor had real issues. Cam tensioners failing at 60,000 miles. Compensator sprockets eating themselves. Heat problems that cooked the rear cylinder. Mechanics dreaded those bikes. The Milwaukee 8 changed all that. It runs cooler, uses hydraulic cam chain tensioners that don't fail, and has a counterbalanced crank that reduces stress across the whole drivetrain. The result? A 1746 cubic centimeter V-twin that, properly maintained, will easily go 150,000 miles without major work. And because it's a Harley, you can find a qualified mechanic in literally every town in America. A new Road King now runs about $22,000 to $24,000, depending on trim. Used 2017 to 2019 models with 25,000 miles are settling into the $14,000 to $17,000 range. Compared to an Indian Chieftain, which costs the same money but has a much smaller dealer network, the parts and service availability of the Road King is unmatched. The drawbacks are obvious. The bike weighs over 820 pounds. The handling is what you'd expect from something that heavy. And Harley's MSRP for accessories and parts is genuinely offensive. A stock seat replacement from Harley costs 4 times what an equivalent aftermarket option does. But the engine? Mechanics admit it. The Milwaukee 8 changed everything. And now the bike that built its entire reputation on the word forever. Honda Goldwing GL1800. Earlier I mentioned a bike that's been documented past 600,000 miles on the original engine. This is it. The Honda Goldwing GL1800 isn't a motorcycle. It's a rolling proof of concept that Honda can build something to outlast its owner. The 1833cc flat 6 engine, the only flat 6 in mainstream motorcycling, runs so smoothly that there are stories of riders balancing a quarter on the engine while it idles. That smoothness translates directly into longevity. Vibration kills engines. The Goldwing has almost none. The story I mentioned? A retired postal worker in Wisconsin documented his 1985 GL1200, the predecessor. passing 1 million kilometers. That's around 620,000 miles. Original engine, original transmission. Honda flew him out for a ceremony. The current GL1800 platform has been in production since 2018 with the second-generation redesign. It produces 125 horsepower, returns a genuine 40 miles per gallon at highway speeds, and comes with a level of build quality that frankly embarrasses every other manufacturer. The doors on the saddlebags close with the same precision as a Lexus. The paint quality is automotive grade. The electronics are tested to outlast the engine. New. You're looking at $25,500 for a base model and around $32,000 for the loaded Tour DCT trim with airbag. That's serious money. But it's also a bike you genuinely buy once and ride until you can't ride anymore. A used 2018 Goldwing with 50,000 miles will sell for $19,000 today and will probably sell for $14,000 with 150,000 miles on it in another decade. The flaws are limited, but real. The bike weighs over 800 pounds, which means low-speed maneuvering takes practice. The trunk space is actually less than the previous generation, which annoyed a lot of longtime owners. And the styling is divisive. Some riders love it. Others think it looks like a sport bike that ate a refrigerator. But here's the honest truth. Ask any Honda mechanic which bike they'd buy with their own money for a lifetime motorcycle, and the answer is the same every single time. The Goldwing isn't just on this list. It's the reason this list exists. 7 bikes, 7 philosophies, 1 common thread. Engineering built to outlast the owner. If I had to spend my own money, it's the Goldwing. Nothing else on the market has been built with the same obsession for durability. Which one would you actually buy? The simple DR650, the bulletproof Goldwing, or something in between? Drop it in the comments. And hit subscribe. More honest breakdowns coming.